Hey, here we are. Really excited to be with Ben. Ben, please tell us name, company name, and a little bit about your business.
Hi there, I'm Ben Jackson. I am the founder of Capsicana. I founded Capsicana in 2009 on a market stall in Hitchin. We're a Latin American food brand, and we're a premium tier sort of Latin American food brand trading in ambient. So we do, meal kits, seasoning mixes, salsas, tortilla chips, all of that good stuff.
Happy days. So what is it? What is it? Got myself tongue-tied then. So tell me, good food is.
I think good food for me is, and particularly in Latin American food, pardon me, is it's all about sharing food together. It's all about having some really, really good, great tasting, well cooked food with great flavors and enjoying it with other people. That's what good food to me is.
Perfect. So what got you into the food industry?
I was doing this really boring job in London. I felt very disconnected from sort of like from it. I'd always had a huge passion for Latin American food because I did a lot of cooking with my dad when I was growing up, and he was obsessed with Mexican food. So it was just something that I'd always loved doing. In my spare time, and I got sick of what I was doing in London. Basically, I was like, right, I need to do something I actually care about. I'm going to go and do this instead.
Happy days. So what's been a high point and a low point of the business so far?
So the highest point for us was landing a Tesco's listing, which we did in March this year. That has been the high point. I think the low point was when I was down in the early days, when I was down to my last £50, and had two children and a partner who was very, very concerned that we were about to be destitute. So yeah, it's sort of just which is essentially, sort of, not having enough capital basically to start your food dream and just having to run with what you've got and deal with the bumps in the road.
Okay. I was too busy listening then.
Yeah, right.
Bit like when I play tennis and I start watching the game and forget I've got to hit the ball.
Yeah.
Great. What's one thing you would do differently if you could start again?
One thing, do you know what? I think so. There are various phases to my business, and when I started, I'd always had this like big vision to kind of get into big retail, into the malts and stuff, and so sometimes I think I could have condensed it a bit, and I could have done things a bit quicker. I think I spent a lot of time sort of not stepping back, and because it's really hard when you're the only person in your business. It's really hard to do that thing we hear about, which is working on the business instead of working in the business. And I think that I would have, if I'd have had maybe getting a mentor on board earlier to help me with the process of actually stepping back and saying, what does the picture look like, that sort of thing, that would have helped me advance a bit more quickly. Yeah, I think so.
Cool. That's good. I was going to I'm not doing very well today. I keep thinking. So I use a lovely lady called Wendy, and it's great. We catch up twice a month, and we just
Yeah.
talk about the business and things, and it just clears your head. It just allows you for that hour just to sort of step
Yeah.
back and
Yeah.
rather
But
than
actually, you never knew this because, but at one point you were my mentor without actually knowing. Because I would just sort of call you up for a chat, and I thought I'm not going to make this a big thing. I'm not
yeah.
going to say, Marcus, will you be my mentor? I'm going to call him up and ask for bits of advice here and there. But that was sort of like later on, because I started in 2009, and I don't think we met until
Yeah.
2012 or 13 or something.
No, I talk to a lot of food producers, and I'm fully aware that just I was chatting to a lady yesterday that had a lovely chocolate company, and she's on her own all day. We just had a lovely chat for about half an hour, helped her think a few things through.
Yeah,
And
it's really helpful.
it really warms my heart. Right. What piece of advice were you given at the start that you would disagree with now, and a piece of advice that you would stand by today?
Okay. First one, I was chatting through this big vision I had about having a really big, national brand, and somebody said, well, if you want to do that, you should go into pasta sauce. And I was like, but how does that work? Because it's a Latin American brand. And anyway, so they would, so that was it. But so basically, sticking to your sort of your and sticking to what you're trying to achieve,
Yes.
is really key. So don't listen to people who try and divert you off of that kind of thing. And the piece of advice that I would agree with, well, it's the opposite. I'm not trying to be annoying, but it's like, really, okay, so really focus on what is going to give you biggest bang for buck. So the whole 80-20 rule, put 80%, whatever that phrase is, I forget, but you know what I mean. It's so an example of this is, at one point early on in the business, I was getting chased around and getting chatted up by the Department of Trade and Industry, who were saying, "Oh, well, we've got all these links in Finland and Sweden, and this guy I know in Iceland, who, go and speak to all these European distributors." And it was a huge distraction from actually what was important, which was build the engine room, focus on UK, and forget everything else. So I think being really focused is really important. And focusing on, what is actually gonna help you build solid foundations and solid blocks that you can keep building on.
That's really interesting. I was with Patchwork Foods for 8 to 10 years, and international can be really distracting, and I talk to a lot of food producers that are in 10 or 15 farm shops and talking about export. And I'm going, but you've got so many shops here that you can build a business with and then look at export, because you have to support it. You can't just be in another country without fully supporting it. And I'm going,
100%.
if you're taking that energy away from the UK, then it's going to affect the UK business.
Yeah. Well, what a lot of people don't realise is, as you just said, if you are exporting, you're setting up a new business.
Exactly.
You're setting up a new business because you're branded. You're branded. It's a consumer play. And if you're going to a completely new territory, nobody knows you there. So you're starting from scratch. So you've got to invest ahead of the curve. If you want to keep it, if you get a random order from TK Maxx in the States, for 5 pallets of stuff, brilliant, great. It's like you get 5 pallets out the door. If you want to sustain it and turn it into a growing business, you've got to invest ahead of the curve, and that means not just money; it means time.
Exactly. That's the thing I'd say is time, and it's mental time as well as physical time.
100%.
Very interesting. Okay, so what food brand do you admire and why?
Fever Tree. A, because I like gin and tonics. And B, although it's not my favorite cocktail, my favorite cocktail is Pisco Sour from Peru. If you haven't tried it, get on it. Lovely. I don't know, you don't drink, Marcus, so I'm sure there's a mocktail version.
Good.
But yeah, the Fever Tree, because I love the Fever Tree story. I don't know if it's true, and I don't know the founder, but the story that I have heard is that this chap, whoever founded it, wanted to start a gin brand in a market that had lots of artisan gins in it. And he met somebody who said, "What do you want to start a gin brand for? The market's really crowded, getting more crowded. The gap in the market is actually the mixer, because all of the mixers are rubbish." And I've thought, I just love that, how the thinking behind that, it was all about creating a brilliant gin and tonic, and but doing it in a different way, looking at it from the other end.
Yeah.
And I think they've got great products, and they've created an absolutely fantastic brand. And I just love how they've just grown it so massively. It's really clever.
I'll tell you a quick funny story. I deal with Dean and DeLuca in Kuwait, and they asked me if I could get some tonic water. So I phoned up Fever Tree and got through to head office and said, "Can I order 20 cases of Fever Tree tonic?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "But I just need 20 cases. Can I order them? I'd even come and pick them up." And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that was a bit annoying. I had an order and they wouldn't take it." And then the next day I heard they sold for like 1.2 billion pounds. And I was thinking, I can see why now. Yeah, they didn't really have like 20 cases in the doorway.
Insane, isn't it?
Yeah, they're a huge company. Yeah, so I learned my lesson there. So what's your dirty food secret?
Pig fat nachos.
Nice.
So basically, it's bacon grease, and it's like you make your nachos. Just do the but put, I don't know. I know it's disgusting. You said dirty food secret. It's dirty, okay? So yeah,
I've gone to the top of the list on this one.
Yeah, but just like, I mean, you could even put bacon in with it. But I don't know, if you've got like if I'm making bacon, I I don't always clean the pan straight away. So anyway, just having bacon grease, essentially warm it up, drip it over the nachos, and then load it up with the cheese and the guacamole and the sour cream and all the good stuff.
So obviously you put it on as like a base on top,
Yeah, I
right?
just I drip it, put it on the, drip it on the nachos in the tray, in the
Yeah,
baking
yeah.
tray. Put the pig grease in, put the cheese on top,
Now,
put it in the oven or under the grill, and then
awesome.
put toppers on.
I work with the,
Very
sorry.
tasty.
I said to myself, I'm going to try not to get too involved in these things, but I worked with dairy farmers in Devon for 10 years, and a lot of I'd be there for breakfast, and they would cook their breakfast, and then they would tip the pan over, all the grease out the pan they would pour over the top of their breakfast, and I was like, that's pretty hardcore.
Nothing goes to waste.
No,
Nothing goes to waste.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll just finish on the food club. Good, and
Yeah.
how it helped.
Yeah, I mean, but basically, I mean, I still to this day, you were the guy that got me over, that got me into. If we hadn't met, I would not be where I am today. So at the moment, we're in Waitrose, Sainsbury's, Ocado, Tesco, Amazon. We're doing phenomenally well. I've got a team of 10 people, and none of this would have happened if we hadn't started working together, because you really helped me sort of get into more farm shops, food halls and farm shops. But the key thing that you did was, and I'm terrible with names. Anyway, the buyer at the time at Whole Foods,
Right.
and there was this event that you did, and they came along, and it was, so there was a bunch of foodies and young entrepreneurs, and young, I say, back in the day, and essentially you helped me get into Whole Foods. In fact, because I'd reinvented the whole Capsicana range proposition, which I launched on June the 24th, 2015, and I had a Whole Foods listing within 2 months, and it was all because of you and the food club connection. And it was from it, and then it was from having that I basically leveraged that listing, supported it when it did lots of tastings, supported it, and then leveraged that to get into Waitrose, and that was what kicked off the whole getting into all of the malts thing. So that's yeah, and I never forget that, and I think I've said that before at like events and stuff. Yeah, so that's so yeah.
Because we go right back to when it was bottles at the farmers. In fact, it was originally chilies, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had pre-packed dried and smoked chilies. We had herbs and spices from the region. We had beans, fajita mix, a salsa chili kit, and then so it was like 35 SKUs, and then like these sort of sauces and stuff. And I had to reinvent the whole proposition to make it relevant for the like the likes of Whole Foods and Waitrose, to make it more convenient, easier to use, easier to understand, and all of that sort of stuff. So so yeah, that was you. So you've been a really
I always remember
important part of the journey.
going back to when you had the little shelf label and you had your bottles all on the shelf label.
Yeah, to make it look like it was a range.
Yeah,
I was always trying to think of ways to make it easier for the customer, for the shop, to say yes than to say no.
Yeah.
So all of these little things like having. Do you remember those starter kits we did?
Yes.
So
God,
instead of saying here's 35 products, pick which ones you want, we just came up with this starter kit proposition, and it was just easy for them to say yes. So
I've helped a few brands do that, and just look, just put together a box and say, look, these are our best sellers. This is the best way to start. It's like 80 quid. Let's get going. And just make it easy. Make that first order as easy as possible.
100%. Yeah,
brilliant.
Definitely.
Ben, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for taking your time.
No problem at all.
No worries. And cheers.
Great to see you.
See you soon. Cheers.
See you soon. Cheers, Marcus. Bye.